Teka muna, Sabado alas 8 ng gabi. Teka muna, Sabado alas 8 ng gabi. Teka muna.
Is nagbabago ang ating buhay dahil sa technology, mas mabuting mag-tech ka muna. Teka muna, sandali. Bago kayo mag-click, mag-like o mag-share, dapat merong extra care. Ako po si Mon Isberto at welcome sa isa na namang episode ng ating programang Tech Ka Muna. Tayo po ay napapanood ng live sa 1PH Signal TV Channel 1 and we can also be seen live and on demand on the Facebook page and YouTube channel of 1PH. Magandang gabi mga kapatid. Nako, malapit na po. Monday na po, eleksyon na. Okay, ang tanong ay, handa na ba po tayo? Ibig sabihin, halimbawa, meron na ba kayong listahan ng mga taong iboboto nyo sa iba't ibang posisyon, national and local? Nako, mga kapatid, importante na may listahan. Dahil ang ibig sabihin nyo kung may listahan po ay napag-isipan nyo kung sino ang iboboto nyo. At pagdating nyo doon, hindi kayo maguguluhan. Okay? Number one. Meron pang isa. Actually, marami pa, pero I'll just give you one more example. Alam na ba ninyo kung ano ang presinto, kung saan dapat mag-vote? Okay? Nako, kailangan alamin na po. You have still one more day to check. Dahil mahirap po yung pupunta ka doon, hahanapin nyo pa kung anong presinto ninyo. Okay? In the meantime, sige, for tonight, ipagpapatuloy natin yung discussions ng mga ating iba't ibang digital technologies na nagiging importante o sumisikat o nagiging mas kapansin-pansin sa panahon ng eleksyon. In the first interview that we'll have tonight, we will be discussing a new mobile app na pwedeng gamitin ng mga poll watchers at ordinary mamamayan, ordinary citizens to report possible anomalies na maaaring mangyari during the election. Okay? Yan po ang una. Ang pangalawa naman, di ba last week I think we discussed yung paano ginagamit ngayon yung Google Trends para ma-predict ang outcome ng mga eleksyon. Ifa-follow up natin yung discussion ngayon kasi this time we will be discussing how Facebook and other social media, similar social media application, paano pwedeng gamitin, paano pwedeng pag-aralan yung behavior ng mga tao sa Facebook para ma-predict kung ano ang magiging botohan sa darating na eleksyon. Okay? But in the meantime, let's start off with our first guest. Let me introduce to you to discuss itong bagong mobile app na pwedeng makatulong sa ating mga ordinaryong citizens kung makatulong na gawing mas orderly ang eleksyon natin. Ang ating guest ngayong gabi po ay President ng Cornerstone Technologies which developed this mobile app. Ang tawag po sa mobile app na ito ay Hope Watch 2022 and our guest is Atty. Ria Villanueva-Dam. Good evening, Ria. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Mon. Thank you so much for having me over.
Ay nako, ako magpapasalamat sa iyo dahil alam ko super busy kayo.
I'm never too busy for you. Ikaw pa. After everything that we've gone through, it's a pleasure for me to, be a guest.
Salamat naman. O sige, tuloy natin ang ating discussion. Before we discuss the app itself, itong Hope Watch 2022, ano bang naisip nyo ang mga senaryo? Kasi you have to design this app, hindi ba? So, ano yung mga naisip nyong sitwasyon na kung kailan pwedeng makatulong yung paggamit na ganitong app para, maging mas maayos yung ating eleksyon? What kind of scenarios were you looking at?
Simon, when you talk about elections, there are 3 stages.
Okay.
Before, during, and after. Before elections, you have to make sure that number one, the people know, like what you mentioned earlier, you have to know where your precinct is located. So you have, of course, it's based on the premise that you actually registered, di ba?
Yes.
With the COMELEC. Kasi if you did not register, wala tayong magawa dyan. So what we did was, we were thinking, how can we assist the voter, in every step of the election process? Because at the end of the day, this election is very crucial. Crucial in a sense that it will determine our country's destiny. we are in such a rut right now, from all levels, right? Economically, financially, socially, politically. So whoever we choose in this election will determine our country's destiny, because that whoever is going to win will be taking the reins for our country for the next 3 to 6 years. Okay,
Okay.
why three? Senators and mayors, etc. Most importantly, at the presidential level. So
Okay.
there are so many news coming out of potential cheating,
Mm.
potential dagdag bawas, people not being able to vote, etc., etc. The list goes on. So what
Huwag mo kalimutan na, Ria, vote buying. Yun ang madalas
vote
pag-usapan ngayon.
buying? Yes, vote buying is part of it. But you know what's more important, mo, ano, is that the people still believe in the process, because this is a different twist to it. You're asking me what led us to develop the app. The
Yes.
app is called Honest Open Philippine Elections. So we are
Mm.
actually looking at transparency in the process. The last election brought about a 7-hour glitch, which brought a lot of, how do I say this, suspicion or thoughts in the minds of our citizens. Nadaya ba tayo o hindi? Right? Now,
Okay.
when that thing happens, it's a very dangerous scenario wherein the people might no longer believe in the selection process for a leader.
Okay.
That would mean the start of the fall of our democracy, because at the end of the day, we are a democratic country and we elect our leaders using an accepted process. If the people stop believing in it, then we are in trouble. So
Mm.
based on that premise, we were thinking we must design a way to audit the system and let the people be involved.
Okay.
In the past, do you realize what happens? If you're a voter, you just go out, you vote, after that you go home and let the watchers watch over your vote. Tama? And bahala
That's
na what's gonna happen. Anyway, PPCRV is there, NAMPREL is there, everybody is there, COMELEC is there. Bahala na what's gonna happen. So
Okay.
you are not as invested in the process. This time around, we said, we need to get the people to be more aware of their civic responsibility.
Okay. Okay. So
So
yan ang larger purpose nyo, Ria.
that is the purpose. Because why? We elect the leaders, yes, but the people are not really invested. You go out, you vote, that's it. There's a huge wave right now of volunteerism. There's a huge wave of awareness of the platforms of the various candidates, right? So,
Okay.
given that, people are now wanting to have a voice. I want to choose who my leader will be. Given that, what happens? You go out, you vote, but after, bahala na what's going to happen. So we said, no, we need to empower the people. We
Okay.
need to give them the tools that will enable them, number one, to report if they are not able to vote.
Mm.
There
Okay.
is what you call voter disenfranchisement. Not allowing, di ba, there's vote buying and there's negative vote buying. Negative vote buying is like, I will pay you not to vote. Di ba? Another
Okay.
one, I will pay you to vote for the candidate.
That's
So
right.
that is one. Another one is election violence. You know that is the supporter of your opponent, then you will not allow that person to leave the house on election day. You will
Uh-huh.
find a way to cordon them off. Now, example, in Metro Manila, maybe this might not be as prevalent, but in the provinces, this is a very serious concern. And in
Okay.
the province, what happens? If that happens to you, you cannot go to the police, right? Because you don't know if they are involved. You cannot
Mm.
go to your barangay captain, for all you know, he's part of that. So what
Okay.
we are doing is we're providing a platform for these people who might be disenfranchised to report whatever is happening on the ground.
Uh-huh.
On
Uh-huh.
our end, we have this call center in Makati with 200 to 1,000 expandable seats, plus 1,000 more cloud-based, platforms, call center platforms ready to accept volunteers. These are the ones who will accept the calls that will be made through our app.
Okay. Okay.
Our app is going to be used. Example, you're in that scenario. You cannot leave the house. There are armed men outside your gate or outside your house. What do you
Mhm.
call us? We will record whatever is happening. We will document it. We will ask you, okay, sir, can I have your name? Who else is there? How many voters are you there? Diba? We will
Okay.
document everything, study it from a legal perspective and see, does it amount to an election violation? If it does, then, you know, we will go and file a case on your behalf. What we could do also is, example, if the case needs to be filed locally, we will prepare the complaint for you and send it to you via PDF using the app. So with
Okay.
that,
Uh-huh.
it is there to assist the voter at that level to be able to exercise his right to vote.
Okay, pero Ria, I mean, let's step back a bit, no? Kasi ang take ko dyan sa sinasabi mo, hindi lang ito app na kumbaga magpapadala ka lang ng retrato o report. Ano ito, nakadikit ito sa isang sistema, yung call center na sinasabi mo,
Yes.
na pwedeng i-process itong information sa isang paraan na pwedeng gamitin ito kung halimbawa magkakaso-kaso, ganun ba ang labas nito? Is that how it goes?
Yes, Mon, because you have to remember.
I forgot, attorney ka nga pala eh. Sorry.
So, we were thinking about it. It's like, if we're gonna do this, we might as well make it in such a way that in case an election protest will be filed, this can be evidence. Diba? So
okay.
we have documented it. We will mark all the information that comes to us in such a way that it can be used as court admissible evidence. Of course,
Okay.
next question dito is, if I report, will my identity be disclosed, diba? It is up
Yes.
to you. If you want us to file the case on your behalf, we will guide you through it, and then we will tell you, okay, if you file the case, these are the implications, etc., etc. It will be explained to you on a case-to-case basis. Now, if you
Okay.
choose to remain anonymous, we will keep your anonymity. We will preserve your anonymity. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think let's go to now that you've given us the background and this overall objective. Can you explain, sige, what are the key features of the mobile app? No, ano yung pwede mong gawin using this app, and how do you do that?
On election day, so right now, what you need to do is just download and register.
Oo nga pala, no? Download mo na.
Download muna. First, you have to download and register. Once you have registered, you will notice that there is like a chat platform wherein
Wait. Ria, registration, ibig sabihin, you will, submit your personal identification kung pangalan mo, gano'n?
for the basic user, you just need to submit your name, your
Mhm.
mobile number, and your email.
Okay.
The mobile number, because it is a phone, we will send a one-time password to you just to validate that you're a person. You're not a bot that, signs up automatically for an app, right?
That's right.
So
Okay.
we will send you a one-time password, which you will need to encode into the app. That's one way for us to validate. We will
Okay.
also need your email in case there will be other information that we will send to you or something like that. Example, if you forgot your password. Okay, this is for the registered volunteers, which is a different category that we will talk about. But if you're
Okay.
just a regular user, we would want to have your email on file so that in case we need to send your password, if your account is compromised, we will send your password through your email. So that is another way to, it's just for security purposes, right?
Yeah, no, I understand. Oh,
And then, so
kailangan mo talaga ng security. Kahit ano ang app niya, dapat security.
security. And then
Oh.
after that, we will ask you for your address up to barangay level. Okay?
Okay.
Why? Because we have created a broadcast system within the app wherein we will classify the information either at the national level, regional, provincial, city, and barangay. So these will be like announcements that we will forward based on your location. So like right now, if you have downloaded the app, on the national level, you will find the precinct finder. So we've hooked it up to the COMELEC precinct finder module on their website. So using the app, you don't need to look for the COMELEC site. You just click Philippines and then you will find the precinct finder there inside, right? Because right now, everyone needs to know where is his precinct to vote.
Okay. Okay.
As it progresses, example, as we receive news that's related, let's say to Metro Manila, let's say Makati, something is happening in Makati, we will post that news in the Makati section. So all residents or all users of the app who reside in Makati will get that information. So
Okay.
if your app is silent, be happy. It means that nothing is, happening. No news is good news. So, for example, in some precincts, there's a problem. The precinct is still closed. It's not yet open. We will also send out messages there. Everyone living in this barangay, there's a problem with your precinct, etc., etc. Now, you will ask, how will we get that information? We use this concept called crowdsourcing.
Paano yun?
Okay, crowdsourcing. What is crowdsourcing? You use the power of the crowd to generate whatever you need. So that's an IT concept which we applied here. So we have several thousands of watcher volunteers, diba? They will be the ones on the ground to provide us with information on what is happening at the precinct level. Now, if you're not a watcher, you're not privy to this information, right? Because they just share it among their network. Now,
Okay.
for the first time, we will offer that information to the voters. It's like this is happening at the precinct. We will announce it through the chat platform.
Okay. Okay. So meron kayong chat din.
Yes.
So meron na kayong news, may precinct finder, meron ka
Precinct
pang chat. Oh,
Pang-chat, oo. So, once you are there, di ba, you will see. Now, that group chat function, it's not for the regular user. These are for our registered volunteers. Okay, now, what is this registered volunteer? Example, you're a lawyer. You want to volunteer for this election. You have the option whether to volunteer on-site or off-site. On-site means that you have to be there at the precinct on election day. Now, of course, it's uncomfortable, it's hot, it's this, it's that, diba? You could be lazy or you want to do other things, but you want to volunteer and be on call. So you could register to be an on-call lawyer for that election. So what happens? If there's any legal related issue, then we can call on you. Diba? Example, you're registered for this barangay. A complaint came in and we need a lawyer on site to assist. Then we will have a roster of volunteer lawyers on call whom we could request to go over to that particular precinct to help out whoever is in need.
Okay. But
So,
question mo na, Ria.
Serving
Kasi
your
malapit ng election eh. Do you already have some of these volunteers already? Nakapag-sign up na sila. Okay,
We
so meron na
are
kayo.
them because we are also supported by some political parties. So they have signed up because, as I mentioned, Mon, this app is free to use by everybody. We are non-partisan. Whoever you are supporting, you need our assistance. Download the app and tell us, we're this group, we're this lawyers group that we want to help, and then ganyan, diba? We will create a chat group for you so that you can even organize using the app. You don't need to go to Viber or look at other platforms. And this chat app is secure in a sense that unlike Viber, once you're part of a Viber group, everyone in the group can get your phone number. Here, we mask your phone number. We mask your email. So it's similar to Telegram. So you can just chat here, no? And after that, if election is done, you don't want to have anything to do with the people that you met here, that's fine. There's no way for them to get your number unless, of course, you gave it to them. And that's a different story. So,
so you have a chat function, news function, or what else can an ordinary citizen naman? Okay.
Ordinary citizen. Okay, ordinary citizen. Once you have registered, no, in case there is some anomaly, let's call it an anomaly that happens at the precinct or while you're waiting, or you could send us a chat message. We call it 911 chat and 911 call. 911 chat is available to all users, registered users. But for a 911 call, you have to volunteer. or you have to give an ID so that more or less I would know who you are, diba?
Mm.
Or you have to be vetted. Let's say you're part of this particular volunteer group, then I will recognize you. One, it's similar to, your phone, diba? When
Mhm.
you when the number is saved, there's a caller ID, then you know that you're safe to answer that. You know that person. But if a strange number calls you, chances are you're not gonna pick it up, diba? Kasi
Okay.
you don't know who's calling. So
Hindi.
similarly, we developed our database that way. So why did we do it this way? Because we understand that not everyone has a mobile phone in the country.
Okay.
And not everyone has data capability. But
Uh-huh.
if they sign up with their, let's say with Isang Bayan, if they partnered with Isang Bayan or Akbayan, Makabayan, Reforma, any political party who signed up with us, 'di ba?
Mm.
They just need to give their numbers to that group. That group will forward their numbers to us. We will put your number in the database. And then you can use the toll-free number that we will be publishing to use to call us in case of any issues.
Okay. So toll-free siya, yung mga calls for this
Toll-free.
particular purpose. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Toll-free, and may I make a spiel? Thanks to Globe, Smart, and PLDT for giving us 200 toll-free lines each.
Okay. Okay.
So
So,
we have that
yung mga telcos
capability to
dito.
answer. Oh, the telcos, yes. And
Okay.
we're also asking Globe, but we don't know yet if it's already approved or not. No, we asked them to whitelist the app so that
Oh.
using a Globe number, whatever information you send to or receive from the app will not be deducted from your data.
Okay.
Data load or something, na. So for
Oh, malaking
people,
tulong yun. Malaking tulong yun.
because
Uh-huh.
we want to make this as accessible to everybody as possible. And it's
Okay.
crucial for this election. So we have the chat platform, we have the call platform, we have the announcements, for any announcements related to the election, any broadcast that is needed. We also have we will be requesting our users to also take a photo of the election return at the end
Mhm.
of the, closing of the polls. Once the polls close, the vote counting machine, the VCM, will generate the election return. The election return are the results of everyone who voted in that particular precinct.
Okay.
Once that's printed, the second copy is required to be posted outside the precinct for public consumption. We would like to request all our users to take a photo of that using the app. Once you have taken a photo, that photo will be sent to us in the central headquarters. We will convert it into a digital format. We will validate it, we have ways to validate it, don't worry. Once it is validated, we will start tabulating the results. So
Okay.
you will even get a copy of the validated election return in your app based on your barangay and based on your city. So what happens? You know the results of the election. You don't need to look for it anywhere else. It will be published in your app.
Wow. Okay. So maraming pwedeng gawin pala sa app na yan. So,
Yes.
okay. Where can they download this app, Ria? So, I suppose Google Play, Apple, and the Apple Store. So,
Yes.
okay.
They
And,
just have to you have to key in Hope Watch 2022, one word, no space. Hope Watch 2022. Both available on Apple and Google.
okay. Ria, well, thank you very much. We ran out of time. Maraming salamat. And like I said, I don't want to keep you too long in this show because I know you're gonna run off somewhere.
I'm always running off somewhere, but for you, I'd really take time off more.
Well,
So
much appreciated, Ria. Thank you very much again. Maraming salamat. Attorney Ria Villanueva-Dam, President of Cornerstone Technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mga kapatid, wag po kayong umalis. We will be right back. Tuloy po tayo sa ating programa.
Bahay namin naka-red fiber. Gaming meetings, bonding with movies. Live selling home gym
100% fiber internet kaya ang sarap maging tambahay with Red Fiber.
Kayo ay nakatutok sa Tech Ka Muna. Maging techie para buhay ay easy. Hatid sa inyo ng PLDT Home.
Welcome back mga kapatid. Itutuloy natin ang discussion na ito right before the coming May 9 elections. At ang pag-usapan natin ngayon naman ay mga surveys at saka mga studies tungkol sa paano boboto ang mga Pilipino on May 9. No? Bukod dun sa mga alam na natin mga opinion polls which we have been using for many years now, meron naman mga bagong digitally based mga studies, social media sentiment na ginagamit para i-predict yung results ng eleksyon. Pag-uusapan natin ngayon para mas maintindihan natin itong mga bagong technologies na to. Ang guest natin po ay, first of all, we have Mr. Wilson Chua.
Hello. Thank you for inviting us here.
And then thank you also for joining us, Wilson. Wilson is the big data consultant ng Future Gen International. Okay? And then let's bring on Wilson's partner in this particular activity, si Mr. Roger Du.
Hey, glad to be here, sir.
Thank you very much, Roger. Roger Du is the CEO of Autopolitique, which is a political strategy firm. No, and I understand, Roger, you've been involved in many elections in this part of the world. How many elections have you been?
I have done over 90 election in ASEAN country. A lot of it in my hometown, Taiwan, but I also done quite a bit of consulting for other countries abroad. So we have seen a lot of different weird tactics around the place.
Okay. Anyway, and also mga kapatid, no, I mean Wilson and Roger, I think they're overseas. Wilson, right now you're in Singapore.
Opo, coming from air-conditioned offices.
Well, mainit dito sa Maynila. And Roger, I think, is now in Taipei.
In Singapore too, also in air-conditioned room.
Okay. Anyway, let's go straight to this discussion. I understand that you gentlemen have been putting together, digitally based tools, for anticipating or predicting how people will vote in these coming elections. No? Can you please explain how this is done? Because this is where a lot of people get confused. No? Because how can social media information be the basis for anticipating how people will vote in elections? No? Would you start off, Wilson?
I would defer to Roger. He's the expert in this one. Roger.
Yes, Roger.
Yeah, sure. So what we do is we gather social media data. The way we see it, social media is like an online diary for people. So we look at long-term attitude people have about Lenny, BBM, ISCO, Senator Lacson. So from these long-term engagement, people liking or disliking, find their comment ridiculous or find their action very favorable. So we track these attitude across time. That's how we create a basis for how strong their support is. And we also keep track of how the media report them versus how influencer versus how their own fan page behave. So we look at different factors because we have about 89% of all publicly available data in the Philippines for a very long time. So we can make these kind of large trend prediction even before we start looking at voter preference.
Well, Roger, could you give us an idea how long do you monitor, let's say, people's preferences or what they say or what they like or whatever?
Well, we can go back 2 years if we need to. But typically, we can establish an attitude within about a year worth of data because you can like or hate someone sporadically, but to like for a whole year is very, very difficult. This is how we also detect troll network because they're not consistent and they're not long-term behavior.
Okay, so in short, you're gathering this data for a period of time. From where do you get this data? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Or is it TikTok? Or what platforms are you looking at?
We gather primarily from Facebook. That's the one we really analyze because in the Philippines, if you use Facebook Lite, you get free internet. So for us, that's the largest treasure of data. Well, we also have access to YouTube and Instagram. but primarily is Facebook because Philippines is a Facebook nation.
Yeah, well, that much we know. Okay. Now, Wilson, I want to get you into this discussion now. Okay, if that's how you guys do it, what have you been seeing, let's say, over the past couple of weeks? In what I understand is a very dynamic situation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
can you flag us, give us an idea of some of the information that you've gathered so far?
So, number one, unlike the surveys, what we see is it is a close fight. Over the campaign period, we've seen the lead being overtaken by one or two candidates. So there are instances where BBM is ahead, and then other instances where Lenny is ahead. But the more important thing is coming into the home stretch, we're seeing Lenny's numbers widen. Her lead against BBM is now larger. Like 2 or 3 days ago, that was only 4%. Now, if we measure, so let me explain a bit about this chart. This chart measures the engagement score as computed by Roger's secret sauce of formula based on Facebook data. So the numbers over here are 5.5 million, from 0 to 5.5 million. And then on the x-axis, you have from February 1 all the way to today, May 5. No, the pink line that you see is the cumulative total social engagement score for Miss Lenny. The red line, the dark red, you see is for BBM. Now, the other thing you will note is the other three contenders like Isko, Ping, and Manny are really very far behind. And so we feel this is a two-horse race. Now, going back to this gap, 2 or 3 days ago, the gap was like about 4%. But now, when we compute the total engagement score and compute it as a percent of this total, 10 million, Lenny's share comes to 47.88%. And BBM share is now 38.5, which gives you around 9.3.
Okay.
9.3% lead or gap in social engagement scores.
Okay. Now, can I butt in here at this point, Wilson, Roger, because there is that category there, social media engagement score.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what does that mean? So that because I like you on social media. How do you translate that? This person's gonna vote for? I mean, what's the reasoning there?
So Roger is the expert. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah. So for social engagement, we measure how often a content is liked, how often people comment on it, and how often people share, and how often the content share being reshared. So we're measuring people's interest and engagement in a specific candidate over time. So for us, that's a very good indicator. If they don't even like you, they don't even comment on you, don't share it, chance of them supporting you is very low. So we use that as a graduated level of engagement until you pull them into your fan page. This is why we also look at the engagement score, but also look at how active a fan page for that one candidate is. So we're looking at the general behavior and specific behavior.
Okay, but Roger, here's I think the question that comes up most often when I have conversations with my friends. Okay, the guy likes this person, this candidate. How do you logically conclude with some confidence that this likes will translate into a vote? Okay, that's one. Then the second one is that, do you know that this guy is even a voter? So, he may have the right sentiment, but it won't count because let's say he forgot to register. He's not a registered voter. So doesn't that impact on the accuracy of the forecast that you draw from that kind of data?
Yes. So first one, we know we're looking at this for a whole year. So we're not looking at somebody liking ISCO or Pac-Man for 1 or 2 times a month. We're looking at very stable behavior over time. So we have fairly good confidence. This person is very politically engaged. They're engaged in one direction, and they're really focused on this one candidate. So that's the first part. The second one, we don't know if they're a legitimate registered voter because we have 0 personal
Mhm.
data. Everything
Yes.
we have is reactive. So what we're looking at is, okay, and we're looking at a large number. For every chart you see, there's over 80 million data points behind each one of those charts. We'll also
Wow.
show you. So
Okay.
we're thinking, okay, so we have about 70 million people. Even 10% of them are not registered. Directionally, we're probably on the right track.
Okay, so the X factor here that I get from what you're saying, Roger and Wilson, is that, let's say, unlike opinion polls, which have fairly limited sample sizes, no? 1,200, 2,000. Although I've seen something like sometimes I've seen a opinion poll with 10,000, but normally it's about 1,000 to 2,000 plus.
3,005.
So that's something like that. Yes.
Mhm.
But in your case, and the amount of data that you get from that sample is relatively small. But what you're telling me is that you have millions of data points that
Yep.
somehow work the statistics just work out by sheer volume. Is that what you're saying?
Let me clarify, Roger. Let me take this. So you remember we said Roger has over 90 campaigns under his belt.
Okay.
So in terms of big data analytics, it's more of a correlation. So what Roger found that using his trademark computation of social engagement, it is highly correlated with the votes. We
Okay.
do not say that it is causal. We do not say that just because you like the person, ergo you're going to vote. No.
Yes.
What we're saying is, for all these 90 elections, wherever a candidate has a higher social engagement, they are also more likely to get voted in.
Okay.
And if you show the next slide that I'm sharing, we're
Mhm.
also tracking positive sentiment. In the 2016 election, I used Twitter's sentiment analysis to predict a Duterte win. And I published that in Manila Bulletin, where I write as the columnist there. But
Mhm.
importantly, this slide also reveals an interesting fact that I will share with your listeners today. So let me just describe briefly this chart. When a person says, I love, or uses the love emoticon for Lenny, it gets into the blue bar. Similarly, if somebody loves BBM, it gets into the green bar associated with BBM. So as Roger has said, you accumulate millions of data points. And so these are the totals, the aggregates for all of those love reaction.
Okay.
Similarly, you have the angry and the sad reaction. So we accumulate that as well. And these are the red bars that you see. And finally, there are some reactions that you cannot put either as positive or negative. For example, wow. There's a wow reaction on Facebook, right?
Okay.
Is it wow because I'm so enamored with you, or wow, I'm just being sarcastic?
Oh wow.
Oh
Okay.
wow, or the ha ha. Am I putting haha because I genuinely am laughing at what you're saying, or I'm like some of my Twitter friends are saying, for the younger millenniums, it's a diplomatic way of mocking the post. So
I can buy
let's
that.
go. Let's go back to that slide. But what Roger is saying here is, so all of those neutral or swing reaction goes into the yellow bar.
Okay.
And so these are what we call the undecided. Undecided. Now, let us put some numbers behind all those undecided. Turns out, if we tabulate all those swing reaction, 35% have not yet made a decision as to who to vote for.
Well, that's pretty large.
It's
At this
pretty
point?
large.
At this
Yeah.
point, I mean, when was this date? I mean, when was
This is as of today. So we tabulated for the last 2 weeks ending today, or ending midnight of today, right? And
Okay.
and let me say, you did say Google Trends, right? So let me cite the Google Trends for the French runoff election. The election was on April 25 or 24, you see?
Yes.
And what
Yes.
do we see? In the 7 days to the run-up to the actual election, here's the spike in searches. So it means that for the French, a lot of them did not make up their mind until the last 7 days. And like in the Philippines, we are now in the home stretch.
Well,
Okay?
okay, Wilson, can I just bring Roger into this discussion now? I mean, you're
all right.
in the 90 elections you've seen. Is this a normal thing that there's a substantial portion of people who hold back until the last week or so? Is it only here in the Philippines or in other countries as well?
No, this is fairly common. I've seen it in Taiwan. I've seen it in Indonesia. Most people, we're not, unlike us, most people are not disengaged with politics. That's the thing. For them, it's like, okay, once every 3-4 years, let me cram for it. Let me ask friends. So they're tuned out. They're more concerned about Netflix shows, comedies. Politics is a small part of their life. It's only people like us. We're fanatically tracking everything politics. So the French is a normal behavior. They just want to find out more about this decision the closer they get to. Some people, some places, the real decision come in the last 3 days. That's why the cooling off period forces people to adjust, forces campaign, because if you have the cool off period the last 3 days, most people are most able to be influenced in the last 3 days. So you get really weird campaign dynamics.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you can show the slide again, I have something to share. This is from Inquirer. Apparently, there was a TV5 SWS survey in 2016 where a total of about 33% only decided in the last week or so before election. This was the last election. So we are not, what the data is saying is something that also happened in the Philippines 6 years ago.
Okay. So in short, we're looking at what? Anywhere from 20 to 30% of the electorate who actually votes, deciding in the last week or so.
This week, in this home stretch. And you should see Google Trends for the Philippines to spike this week.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So what you're saying, but you're telling us this, Wilson and Roger, because you've seen this happen before in other countries.
Yeah.
Similar behavior. Okay. Well, because this is quite new. I mean, I know that these platforms have already been operating for quite several years already. I mean, Google Trends has been actually working since the early 2000s, but it hasn't penetrated people's consciousness that
There's
there
a reason.
there are these platforms. You're saying, Wilson, there's a reason why that hasn't. It's only now that it seems to be coming out.
So as a data scientist, what we'd like to do is to look for honest signals. Data that is unlikely to be adulterated by vested interest.
Okay.
And so Google Trends is a good example. Facebook, because of the massiveness of the data, is highly unlikely for a candidate to really game to a significant degree. Right? So these are what we call honest signals.
Okay. Honest by sheer volume, is that
Yes.
how it is?
So, an
Yes,
interesting example, it would be the recent endorsement of Ignacia de Cristo for BBM. So we can actually tell you how important that endorsement is if you want to know, based on data.
Oh, you mean, so you're saying, Roger, that if some big personality, politician group says, we endorse candidate A or candidate B, will that reflect in your social media metrics?
Yes.
It's in the slide now.
Yeah, I just put the data as of an hour ago. So on the top is the number of posts mentioning INC's endorsement of Bombo Marcos.
Okay.
And Senator BBM's support. So if you look on the top, that's the number of posts. So before the endorsement, INC is very quiet. But once the endorsement, is a huge spike in posts. Now, if you look at the bottom, this is people's positive reaction to both BBM and INC. If we, while INC declared the support, there's a huge spike, but that has not consistently transferred to BBM support overall, which tells us the INC vote probably will be there, but as an influential mechanism, it is not very useful. So this is, you can't get this from survey because it just happened, but we can get it because our data is only 2 hours behind social media.
Okay, so you're actually seeing people commenting or reacting to these news developments as it happens.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, how do you guys sleep at night?
Very peacefully.
With one eye open.
What's air conditioning?
Yeah.
No, we actually have alert because we're providing the data to the public as a public server. We don't have any candidate. We have no vested interest in the presidential or the vice presidential. For us, it's just about providing knowledge and providing better decision-making process.
Okay,
Yeah.
but just to really press the point, because doesn't social media data have its own biases, inherent biases, and
That's
how do you factor that in so that you don't have a biased reading of what the data that you're getting into that you're getting from social media like Facebook? How do you deal with that challenge or that problem?
So let me take this, Roger. For Facebook, it's kind of hard because of data privacy laws. So our data is already aggregated. But for other social media channels or medium like Twitter, we can do what we call a network graph analytics. So we can figure out who is talking to whom, who is retweeting whom, and in effect create a visual diagram of the community of people interacting for a particular topic, right?
Okay.
So here's where the beauty comes in. Once we figure out that one person is a known troll, automatically all those nearby neighbors or nodes that are connected to the same guy are then subject to further scrutiny. So in a sense, you can then pick out the troll network in one shot.
Oh, okay. Gosh, that's like you have a sharpshooters. But how do you know it's a troll? I mean, is it because you follow his behavior?
So trolls have typical characteristics. Number one, they usually have an account that has been created recently. They have a few followers or followed accounts, and their content are purely for a particular candidate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one. This technique is nothing new. It's used to identify the key players of the 9/11 terrorists. Yeah.
It's also the same technique U.S. Army used to capture Saddam Hussein.
Correct.
Okay. So
this technique can be used in a lot of ways. It's also been used in the dreaded Panama Papers, where they used it to identify the corrupt officials of each country by looking at correlated shareholders by affinity, by marriage, everything.
Well, that's the thing. It is about the digital world, isn't it, Wilson and Roger? There is somehow an electronic trail.
Correct. Digital breadcrumb.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you call it a fingerprint or a footprint, but somehow if you go inside the digital world, you will leave a footprint somehow. And it is what you're saying. It's possible to trace this if you know how to look for it.
Yep. If you have the data, unfiltered data. Remember, Sermon, when you were with PLDT, we already knew that we could use cell phone mobility data to track the spread of epidemics.
That's right.
Right? So, yeah, those are just sample. Given a correct data set of honest signal, we should be able to tease the insight out of the massive numbers of data.
Okay. Now, here's something because, and I'd like to, to wrap up this discussion. This is something fairly new to a lot of people. Like I said earlier, many of these data tools have been around, but it's here in the Philippines anyway, to my perception. It's only recently that it's really broken into the consciousness of people. And in a way, it's added to the confusion that because it's new and then people are hearing conflicting data.
Yes.
Some opinion polls are saying this. And first, among the opinion polls, there's already divergence of opinion. And then you bring in also the digital tools, and it gets to be confusing. So, what advice can you give to people, in terms of trying to grapple or deal with this data? How should you approach when you see something like this? What should you watch out or look out for?
Well, I can start off with a conflict of interest statement. Whenever somebody publishes a piece of data, they should also publish, like in scientific paper, if they have an existing conflict of interest. So you will notice that for ADDS, where we publish our results, there's always a conflict of statement that's saying we have not taken money or some sort of inducement from any of the campaigns. So we are beholden to no one. If the data shows that BBM is ahead, we will publish it as BBM being ahead. Roger, any other thoughts from your side?
Yeah, the confusion isn't about technology or methodology. The confusion, the conflict is caused by because we are all commercial enterprises. A lot of it is somebody's business model being under attack. That's the reality we're seeing. That's the real problem. That we are encroaching on other people's profit margin, just like every other survey company hates everybody else because it's less market for them. For us, it's not a technology methodology. It's about business.
In terms of management speak, Michael Porter's 5 sources of what was that? Michael Porter's 5 sources of
5 forces.
5 forces. So every organization has to fear a new entrant coming from another industry. So we're not in the polling business.
Yeah.
We look at data and we look at sentiment, primarily used for clients of ours like commercial entities, brand managers. They have a product like a shampoo. They want to find out, how are people liking the product? How can we make it more memorable? What are the keywords that are being said? It so happens like, it dawned on Roger and I that, hey, we can use this to divine voter preference in the coming elections. Let's apply this and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and Sermon, one of the real challenges is digital's making campaign moving faster. And survey has a very known time lag. So one of the C-word thing is it's not that we're a threat to them, it's that their methodology is a threat to themselves because of the time lag. Okay.
Now, a few last points. So one of the comments I've heard recently is that there are people who are statisticians, the data scientists themselves, or very much versed in the opinion poll business, et cetera, et cetera. Some of them are commenting that it's too early to trust these kinds of measurement because the track record is not well established.
It's a fair point.
And that we need to see more before we should invest trust in the kind of reports that we're getting from social media based studies. How do you react to that?
We wait until May 9. You will see.
Yeah.
What about you, Roger?
Sermon, that's absolutely the correct attitude for somebody who spent decades of their life studying survey. For people who have spent decades of their life studying social media, we have a different reaction. It's just it's just human nature. We hold on to what we invested in rather than what is new. So it's a human nature. I understand why they feel this way, and they understand how we feel about data because we have different orientation.
Okay, last question to the two gentlemen. Where do you think this is going to go in the next couple of years? Um, will database kind of predictions or analysis be used more and more? Not only in politics but also in business. I mean, people make decisions all the time to buy this or to buy that. Or where do you see this thing going?
I see data being used as a key competitive advantage. A few days
Mhm.
ago, we were asked by the Management Association of the Philippines to deliver a talk about election and how social sentiment can be used. In that same talk, we got their um, their plans for using data in their business before and after the talk. After our talk, fully 50% more said they will. There was a 50% increase in the number of companies that will now use data for driving their decision as a competitive advantage. And so 3 years from now, it will be a regular thing for top corporations to say, what does the data say? Before we do this, show me the data. Data is the new oil. Roger?
Roger,
Part of it,
what will
it's just
politicians say? What will
uh,
politicians say, Roger?
politicians who don't adopt social media will not get elected. My personal favorite was Senator Locke, but he doesn't use social media. So we see the performance. Here's the real problem. Social media is making everything faster. So campaigns have to start moving faster and faster just to achieve the same result they did before. That's the big challenge. How much of our decision are we going to give to algorithm because they can make decisions faster than human can? That's the real problem. When we have candidate whose message, whose rally are decided by algorithm because human just can't calculate that fast. That's
Yeah.
where democracy gets really dangerous for everybody.
Oh gosh. Well, you're what supercharging the political process in a way, right? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We've run out of
Final
time.
word, please.
Yes. What's up?
Final word, we reserve the right to be wrong. As you know, in data science, if we are wrong and the data does not match the electoral result, we will go back to our drawing board and improve on our model. But that's the
Okay.
way data science works. It's iterative.
Point well taken. Again, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and a very very interesting and educational discussion about what is going on as far as data science for elections are concerned. Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson Chua and Mr. Roger Du. Maraming
Thank you,
salamat sa inyo.
Sermon. Bye.
Okay. And mga kapatid, maraming salamat din sa inyong lahat for staying with us tonight. I know that itong weekend na ito, napakaraming mga pangyayari. And on Monday, please exercise your right to vote. At gamitin po natin ang ating utak, ang ating puso. Sana po ang ating boto ay hindi para lamang sa ating sarili, kundi para sa ating bayan. And in the meantime, tulad po ng parati kong sinasabi, laging tandaan, malaki po ang pakinabang ng mga gadgets. Pero teka, teka muna. Think before you click. Same thing. Think before you vote. Ako po ulit, Simon Isberto, anyong Tech Lolo. Magandang gabi po mula sa amin dito sa Teka Muna. Kami po ang 1PH Teleserbisyo para sa Pilipino.
Teka Muna, Sabado alas 8 ng gabi. 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 Teka muna, Sabado alas 8 ng gabi.